Thank you for watching us on YouTube. But did you know that if you're on the go, you can get the full show as a podcast now? You can get our morning breakdown of the most important topics facing our country, news not being covered by the mainstream media, interviews with change-making progressives, and info on what you can actually do about all this. Search for The Damage Report on your favorite podcast app and subscribe so you know when new episodes are ready to go. Welcome back to The Damage Report, everybody. I am Jai Derol, and I'm so excited to be talking about something a little bit lighter, still serious and weighty, but we have the co-directors of Science Fair in studio right now, Darren Foster, Christina Costantini. Very excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. So Science Fair, your documentary, is in theaters now. People can go see it right now. By the way, I want to mention one thing that I noticed. Right now, in terms of movies that have 100% ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, there's effectively two. There is your film and Paddington 2, and that's basically it at this point.
It's great company.
Yeah, with a good number of reviews too. So people loved it. It was at Sundance, did very well. This is a series of sort of vignettes tracking high school kids that are getting prepared for a major science fair competition. But can you tell us more about why you took up this project and how it came about?
Sure. So Science Fair, the movie, was inspired by my journey to Science Fair when I was in high school.
To this Science Fair?
To this Science Fair, yeah. I competed 2 years in a row, and it totally changed my life, and it made me who I am, and I learned so many things, and during the dark years of high school, it was like a lifeboat for me. And I finally found my tribe when I went to the Science Fair. So as an adult, I look back on all of those memories very fondly, and I would always tell my friends and my coworkers about this weird little world. And so Darren and I are actually investigative journalists, but we decided to take a break and to do a fun, happy movie about kids after doing many dark, sad movies to celebrate this world. So, it's a love letter to the world of Science Fair and a celebration of kids who are acting like adults during a time when so many of our adults are acting like children.
I like the way you put that. It was funny the way you just talked about what I guess this activity, the role that it served for you. It certainly seems like a lot of the kids in this movie, it's similar. That like it's not just that this is a thing that they do, but it's a very big part of their identity as well. And through the course of the film, I mean, there's a big group of the kids, and you get to know them a little bit in terms of their personality, what they're like. Do you think? Is there something different about these kids, aside from just the fact that they're interested in science? Certainly, some of them seem incredibly confident in a way that I know I was never that confident in high school. Not all of them, though, and in a lot of ways, they're kids, they're joking around, they're going to prom and all that stuff. But in talking to all of these kids, is there something fundamentally different about them in comparison to other high school kids?
Yeah.
Well, I think we were looking for, a sort of diverse range of characters, kids that came from all walks of life and have different motivations for being part of Science Fair. So it was really important for us to find the kids that, yes, are very confident and sort of see this as a ticket to college, or a good college, I should say. And then the kids that just see this as an outlet for them, for their curiosity, for, to give a little structure to their lives. So like Robbie, who's from West Virginia, wasn't really into school. He's failing math, but he turns out that he's kind of really brilliant at math. His teacher was like, you need to do your algebra. And he was like, actually, I'm more interested in number theory.
I don't even know what that is.
Either do I. But he did a science fair project and won the West Virginia State Science Fair and qualified for ISEF. And then we met him that year. And then we followed him over the course of the next year where he had another brilliant project about machine learning. So this is a kid who's very much like a self-starter. He has his own, sort of curious mind that he follows down these, very specific projects that he's interested in, and meanwhile he's not doing great in school. Yeah. But that's what the wonderful thing about Science Fair is. It allows kids to sort of pursue their interests in very different ways.
So I want to say a little bit more about the effect that the movie had on me. It's obviously very inspirational. There's a bit at the end where I teared up a little bit. I'm not going to say who does well at the Science Fair and who doesn't and all that, but it's an inspirational tale. At the same time, if you haven't seen it and you haven't seen the trailer, when I think about science fairs, and I participated in many science fairs at like my elementary school and my high school, it was like nothing like this. Like I don't just mean quantitatively, I mean qualitatively. Like I never thought of coming up with something new, developing a medicine, a flying wing, something like that. And there was a quote in the movie where one of the parents, I think, or maybe it was a teacher, said that a lot of these kids are like plants left indoors. I never had a teacher tell me, no, you should be advancing science in your science fair. But you lived this experience. What was it that made you feel not just that you could but should actually produce something, not just show how sunlight affects a plant or whatever, but actually make something?
Right. I mean, I think the level of science that's happening at these fairs can't be understated. The year that we were there alone, there were 500 patents that came out of this fair. And so, yeah, you think of like baking soda volcanoes or, but these kids are doing this really amazing work, and you can't just do it as like a side thing. You have to devote your entire life to your ideas at that stage. And because they're teenagers, they're incredibly passionate, and their minds are kind of unhindered by adult cynicism. And so they go in all of these really exciting directions with their ideas. So we love that about it, but we also love that they're just teenagers. So they're doing this incredible work, but then there's also like this huge dance where they all have crushes, and they ask people on dates, and there's romance, and then there's rivalries. So it has all these high school elements, even though they're doing brilliant work.
Yeah. There's a great line where I think one of them says, "The better you are at science fair, the worse you are at dancing." Which seems true, but they're still really good at science fair, so it's probably okay. One thing, and maybe this relates back to so some of the kids are coming up in difficult situations. Some look like they're at schools that are known for this. This is what the schools do, but not all of them. One school, it certainly looks like there's one teacher that's making it what the school is about. But I noticed there was a reference in the wrap-up period where you're sort of touching base with the kids afterward, that one of the kids, the kid who comes up with the new flying wing design, goes to Aachen University. And you make a note that it's $1,200 a year, I think. And I thought that was very interesting, because that's not my experience going to college. I don't think most people in America, was that a comment on their support for students?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the whole story, Evo's story, who has the flying wing, his whole story is basically, a contrast to, I think, what we see here in the United States. The German science fair director who we interview in the piece, says, like, this is a real priority for us. We're a knowledge-based society. We don't have natural resources. We need to identify these kids. We need to celebrate these kids, and we need to sort of promote science in order to, be able to innovate and to progress as a nation. And I think, the one thing we noticed when we were doing the documentary is when we went to the history of science fair, we realized how much science has fallen as a priority in this country at the national level. The way that our leaders talk about science is a joke, quite frankly. They, at every turn, they're undermining science. And so that sends a real message to kids that, if it's not a priority for our leaders, it's not a priority for them. So.
Yeah, and there was one sad moment. Again, I don't want to spoil any particular story, but before the science fair, they have this great student who's clearly going to do well, and none of the kids in the school know anything about her. And then the person, I'll say, does very, very well, and afterward there's still no acknowledgement. Was that a common thing that these kids were sort of existing as these diamonds in these schools, but going unacknowledged either by the student body or by the teachers and principals?
Totally, yeah, and I think that's something we wanted to show, is that there are these amazing things happening, amazing kids who want to be involved in science, but we're not supporting them enough. And this is not just in the school, that one state where this person did very well. It's all over the country, and I think this movie comes at a strange time for the science fair, because this international fair just lost their primary funder. A lot of science fairs are shutting down around the country. And so, we made this movie as a celebration of this world, and now we see this world as finding itself increasingly, it's petering out. So we hope that this can kind of, make people excited about science fair again and see how much it really matters for kids that are out there doing it on their own, like a lot of the kids in our movie.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to say, I also wanted to thank you. It would have been so easy to just profile some kids in the US, but you go out of your way to go international, because this is an international competition. You show that people are going, and there's obviously this sort of national spirit for the different communities. They're dressed in traditional clothes and things like that. So especially considering how international science is in general, thank you for showcasing that in your documentary as well. Just want to say.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no way to avoid at the International Fair. You know, there's 78 different countries represented, 1,700 kids from 78 different countries. So it is very international. I think for a lot of these kids, it's their first exposure, especially for, you know, well, for all the kids, it's their first exposure to kids from other countries and cultures. So it's a wonderful experience, not only as a cultural exchange, but also an exchange of ideas that these kids, you know, have with one another. And so, yeah, you know, the team from Brazil is, you know, the team part of the emotional heart of this film. So, you know, they have one of the longest shots of anybody that winds up at the fair. They come from a very small, poor town in Brazil and have this improbable journey to science fair. And I love, you know, I think one of our favorite quotes in the film comes from a Brazilian scientist who says, you know, a great idea can come from anywhere. They just need the opportunity. And I think the one thing that their story shows is how many opportunities are missing for kids with brilliant ideas all around the world.
Yeah, that's unfortunately sad. Hopefully, culturally, movies like Science Fair will help to fight against that. And so, as I said, very inspirational, awesome movie. Go see it. It's in theaters now. If you have kids, bring them and tell them, by the way, that they don't have to just do baking soda and volcano. They can actually make something. They can do some Zika medicine or some arsenic detection or a flying wing or something like that. So, Darren Foster, Christina Costantini, thank you for coming in.
Thanks so much for having us.
Great to have you here. Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.